Facebook and YouTube up. Number 23.
We are
live stream.
good on everything at this.
Facebook and YouTube should be up. So if you guys are
All right.
listening. So
We are up and rolling here.
all right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to show number 23. That's the Michael Jordan of 034 Motorsport live chats. That's the only sports reference I know. Sorry. I think I know stuff about like the refrigerator Perry too. From like
That's
the
all right.
Chicago.
You've already
Bulls.
gone over my head.
Yeah. Or no? What's
Wait,
the
Chicago
Chicago
Bulls.
the Chicago football team? The Bears.
The Bears.
Yeah, the Bears. So I'm all maxed out now on sports.
Moving on.
As always, unless you're talking about automotive sports, then I know more about those. But I still don't know a lot about drivers, about Schumacher. Anyways, this is a Q&A session. We're on for the next hour, 59 minutes or so. Feel free to ask anything you'd like. We have addressed dating and marriage questions, food and cooking, other types of tips. But obviously anything 034 motorsport related, or we love tackling general automotive questions. Feel free to challenge us with some esoteric question about something. Our goal is always to give you guys a very factual, direct feedback. We have a strict no bullshit policy at 034 Motorsport. We try to avoid it at all costs. But
yeah, we're not hiding anything with our replies here. So
yeah, no, we will attempt to be very open and transparent and fair, truthful in our responses. So I wanted to start the beginning of the show with something that's kind of trending right now. Is Nick Scambaluri of recent iRose Motorsport fame has agreed to join 034 Motorsport as a tuner calibrator on our tuning and engineering team.
Yep.
This is a conversation we struck up with Nick about a month and a half ago, and he's certainly one of the candidates we had our eyes on from the beginning of our search, and so we're incredibly excited that
super thrilled
he accepted, and we've got a lot of exciting work to do ahead with him, mainly freeing Nate up from having to be on the dyno and actually doing the runs, doing the logging, and in many cases the tuning.
Yep.
And so with Nick's help, and I guess we could talk about.
Yep, we've got another guy that actually started just today.
So Steve Bloom, who will be working remotely with us as an employee from Wisconsin. Is this his first week? Is he coming on? When's he starting?
Well, he's starting today. We'll
Okay.
we'll get him on here for.
Yeah, so
for a little bit.
It's Steve's first day. So welcome aboard, Steve. We'll be announcing more internally here at 034 Motorsport about that, since he's literally probably been on staff for like an hour or so.
Yeah.
So we put together a ambitious hiring effort earlier this year, right around when coronavirus started, to hire 2 new tuners, calibrators, and software engineers. And so Steve is a very capable tuner and software developer. Many of you may know of him from some of the Facebook groups and in the B8 tuning community, where he's done some good work.
Yep.
So Steve will be working remotely to help us, further develop on the software.
Yeah. So when I'm talking about all these tools that are coming, these logging tools, fall code stuff, you're gonna be seeing down the road. A lot of refinements. That's going to be a big effort that Steve's going to have on it.
Yeah.
From the start here.
We're incredibly excited. Having someone like a Steve and a Nick on staff.
Yeah.
We affords us an exponential scale of capabilities to do the things that we've been wanting to do the things that you guys have been wanting us to do. Of course, Nick is extremely well respected in the Volkswagen Audi aftermarket, especially has become well known for Cyvex RS3 tuning, and we're really looking forward to tapping into Nick's skills and resources, but I think most importantly his appetite for learning.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it from talking to him, is just his methods and his desire to do to take on challenges and really own them, and
he'll be learning a lot in this new role, and we're very confident that he'll kill it at learning all the new things that he needs to, and
super impressive guy to talk with.
Yeah, just a great culture. Both Steve and Nick, fit very well into 034 Motorsport values culture, and so yeah, we're super excited to bring them on, and you guys will start seeing the immediate results of this additional capacity internally. I think early next year, when we begin releasing more tunes, releasing more tools and refinements, and taking things to even a whole nother level than we have up till now. So congratulations to both those guys.
Yeah.
Congratulations to us.
Yeah. I think we
having two awesome new staff members. And for me, I'm very invested in 034 Motorsports engineering capabilities. So I'm really geeking out on one, our ability to be able to bring on people of this caliber, and two, at all the things that we want to do that we haven't been able to. I mean, it's kind of
it's been frustrating with so many bottlenecks with just what I can get through today, and the more we do, the better better the product we get you guys, the more you guys are flashing it. So it's just a ever building bottleneck it's now just finally gotten a lot better. So.
Yeah, it's like getting an awesome new tool that helps you do things better and easier than you could before. So we're planning on having both Nick and Steve on a future live chat, possibly next week, and give you guys a chance to get to know them a little bit better, and ask them some questions too. So I know Nick knows a lot about Raspberry Pis and
a myriad of some embedded controller play.
What's the
Arduinos? A bunch of that with his recent 200 projects.
Yeah, so I'm sure there's a lot of you guys that are interested in that kind of stuff too, and maybe we can have a fun conversation with these guys about that. So let's get into the questions. Looks like we have a big list. The first is engine catch can for the 2.5T. So we've talked about this several times, and recently we've kind of changed directions and made some decisions. So we do offer a catch can kit for the 8J 2.5, the Mark II TTRS. We have a really nice kit for that. We will release a DAZA catch can as well. Our challenge has been that there's just not a lot of room in the engine compartments, and unfortunately, the Cyvex took a lot of prime real estate and one of the only spots that was available. The DSG catch can, IROS took a spot on the driver's side, and kind of the only other spot left is the passenger side, little opening there.
Yeah, right above the motor mount.
Yeah. So we are going to look at options of doing a catch can there. It will be similar to the other catch cans that we offer. Unfortunately, it'll be in the same spot as IROS's, so they won't be happy about that. But we've been taking some heat from them on the DSG catch can as well, and I just want to address very directly, we don't copy other people's products. That's never our goal, especially when we can utilize our skills and experience to bring what we feel is a great solution to the market. So they're both good options. They both prevent DSG fluid from spraying out of your transmission and going all over the hood and airbox and everything else.
Yep.
They're both good solutions. You can't go wrong with either. I would say, to the market, make a choice, take a look, see which one suits your needs better. I imagine there will be other companies releasing DSG catch cans that go in that spot as well. So, if we had bought one of their catch cans and sent it out and had it copied, then sure, the criticisms would be 100% valid. But we have no reason to do that. We've been doing this for 20 years. We have an engineering staff who are very good at designing engineering products. We have prototyping capabilities, manufacturing capabilities here in-house. So we're just not that kind of company that would need to do that, and it's certainly not what we want to do, because we have fun designing parts. We have fun making them our own. So stay tuned. Please don't ask for ETAs, but I imagine it will be something that we can bring to the market in the 2021. Hopefully sooner, maybe in the next 6 months. Again, with our expanded hardware engineering staff, it's definitely something we can do. So, anyways, will other intakes fit the 034 throttle body?
I'm guessing this is B8 3
The
liter.
B8 3, I'd say no.
Yeah, it's
not likely.
Not likely to just drop in and bolt up. You might be able to tweak some stuff here and there and play with some couplers, but
it's possible.
As with any of the other throttle bodies in the market, it's the same situation. It's all got to move some hard mounting points around. So chances that things are going to just bolt up to what you've already got.
Yeah, right. We didn't copy anyone else's throttle body, so we I don't know where IE sits. I don't know where APR sits.
No, we
the INA ones we actually have a hose for.
Yeah, on all these we scan the engine bay from the start, decide where the best place for us to put it is, and work back from there from the factory stuff.
Yeah. Someone's asking, what's the difference between 034 control arms and Miley or Lemfurter? There's only so much you can do with these factory style control arms. They all use the similar type torsion rubber bushing. All I can say is we engineer ours to have the stiffest rubber that still functions. If you make the rubber too stiff, it will tear. So it needs a certain amount of compliance to twist, because the center sleeve of that aluminum or steel sleeve, depending on what you get, is clamped into the subframe, so it doesn't move. So the rubber bushing has to twist around that. It's also why it's important that you torque and tighten them at ride height. But I would say, generally speaking, ours are going to be more performance oriented. Ours are going to, be the most the stiffest, least compliant, least deflecting option. I know Miley makes some HD stuff, but in my experience, again, generally speaking, their HD is well below what we consider street density. So if you want a performance-minded solution, engineered and manufactured from the perspective of an Audi driving enthusiast, which is what we are, that's the product we offer. If you want something, what you're going to get from Miley or Lemfurter is an OE replacement supplier who's attempting to capture market share in the general repair market. So, Joe Schmuckatelli goes into a shop in New Jersey, and he's going to end up with a Miley or a Lemfurter. The 034 Motorsport option is probably not going to be offered, because that guy doesn't care about performance. He's just driving. So generally, that's what you're going to get with 034 density products. Now, if we're talking like one specific, we don't buy the Miley stuff and compare head to head. So I am speaking in general terms. But even if you look at like our Mark 5, Mark 6 strut mounts.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Our street density, the option we offer, is substantially stiffer than any of the aftermarket options. None of them come even close. I think ours are like 70, 75 durometer. The stiffest aftermarket one's like 50 durometer.
50 to 55, I think.
Yeah, 55 is like you might get lucky and get a variant. So, next question: intakes. Sorry, I got my phone here.
Yeah.
Intakes for upgraded throttle body on the SQ5 and C7 A6.
Yeah, we'll be working on those as we wrap up with the S4 and the S5 stuff. They're a much smaller market.
Our hardware should fit.
The throttle body, all that'll bolt up. It's just a new hose for the intake shrouds we've got.
Yeah. So stay tuned. Again, with our engineering capabilities growing exponentially, we will definitely
this stuff will happen a lot faster.
Pay more attention faster to those kind of requests. B8S4 single pulley V.7 file maps this week, possibly.
Yeah, so that's the 3-liter supercharged software updates that have all the advanced launch control features. I'm trying to get those in the stage 2 out. I've got a number of boxes built already that are going to be going up. So hopefully, yes, more and more of those out this week.
Hemi throttle body is very popular today. What benefits are we seeing with the Hemi throttle body power-wise?
It's going to be, with this throttle body, it's tough to quantify with a solid number. We'll have power numbers up on our website for the specific build and setup we've got put together. There's so many different options out there that guys are running for different pulleys, different, meth or E40 or fuel. I mean, typically we've seen in the teens at the wheels horsepower increase on
them. In the upper part of the power band.
Yeah, because it's releasing some of the restriction, which that restriction doesn't really come into play get further and further into the power band.
Yeah. And this is something I wanted to comment on generally with intake products, whether it's a high flow intake or a high flow throttle body or even a ported blower to a degree. The airflow, when you have an airflow restriction, it's at a certain amount of flow. So we see a lot of companies in the industry, or some or a number or however many, where they advertise their intake gains and they say it's 10 wheel horsepower, and it's like 10 wheel from like idle to red line.
Yeah.
And that just makes no sense because there is no intake restriction at 3,000 RPM. There's more than enough air coming into the engine to support the number of combustion events happening at 3,000.
And even if there is a restriction at 3,000, it's not going to be the same restriction you're going to see at 7,000.
It's going to be much less.
Yeah, you should see a tapering increase.
And I think you're being generous with that comment because there's really no factory intake that's
typically
restricted at 3,000 RPM. And that's just a function of how many combustion events, how many times is the piston sucking air into the cylinders. When you're doing it at 6,000 times a minute versus 3,000 times, the amount of air that needs to come in to support that is substantially more. So the throttle body simply increases the engine's ability to ingest air, and that's something that is going to grow and improve as RPMs go up. So any of our intake products, any of this throttle body product, and when you're looking at competitor products, always look to see, you can do a quick logic check. Does the power gain they're advertising grow as the RPMs go up? If it doesn't, then it could just be they did a warm pull and a cold pull, and that's what they're comparing, or they just went and fudged correction numbers or whatever. There's lots of ways to fudge a dyno. Someone was asking, are we going to continue? Yeah. Will you continue support for B5S4? We will continue as long as the market wants it. So 034 Motorsport does not exist by putting lots of products on the shelf that nobody wants.
Does the market want it? Is the market actually buying it?
Yeah. We have an economic imperative to sell a certain volume of products just to stay in business, much less grow or be successful. So if all of a sudden every Volkswagen Audi tuning person in the industry dumped all the MQBs and all the B8s and the B9s and everyone got into B5s and started tuning B5s, then our B5 product line would grow.
Yeah.
But that's not what's happening. People are moving into B8s, they're moving into MQB, they're moving into the Daza cars. And so there's just less and less people modding B5s. Also, the Me Too tuners and the eBay stuff, and a lot of these smaller guys out there that are.
There's a rapid race to the bottom for a number of items.
And they sell stuff for really cheap. They don't have to make a lot of money to support their operations, which are typically really small, and so it just dilutes the market from a volume standpoint, but also from it's not very profitable. So you do see the AWEs and the APRs and the 034s and everyone else pull out of these older markets because economically they're just not sustainable. Yeah. So it's really not a philosophical thing. We love B5s. I'd love to have a business selling B5 parts all day, but that's just not. That doesn't dictate reality.
Yep.
Hey guys, I know you guys aren't typically into custom tuning, but I'd really love to see you guys get a Cyvex Daza in there and work on some DSG tuning for it. Right now, options are limited and there's not a lot of customization. It's certainly something. So this would be a DSG file specifically to work with Daza.
It's probably it's a little bit of both. The DSG launch stuff gets tricky because you have to coordinate both the ECU and the TCU. So there's some limits on both the ECU side and the TCU side you've got to play with. So whether we do that with Daza, I'm possibility, but we are looking at bringing all of our advanced launch stuff into other. That's probably more the direction we would go.
Definitely something we will look into. It also seems like people will be moving away from Cyvex.
Seems that way with some of the options that are coming out.
Stopgap solution, but with what Dynaspectrum's doing, it's going to kind of make the whole Cyvex thing obsolete.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a pain in the butt. You have this extra ECU along for the ride.
It's
doesn't
quite
fully,
a bit, yeah,
fully
it's
integrate.
quite a bit more involved here for sure.
So
yeah, because that's the trick with these. Once you really get a handle on the stock ECUs, they're very capable. There's not a lot you can't do with them if you have enough time and knowledge.
Right.
So it's just getting to that point with the stock ECU, putting the tools together so people can use it.
Someone's asking 7,400 RPM shift for the ZF8.
Yep, that's all stuff we're working on. The ZF transmission program is coming up very soon for updates and official releases.
We've been in beta with a ZF8 tune for a while. If you're interested in it, we sell it at a heavily discounted price, but it's a good file, but it will improve it substantially, and it's not ready for prime time yet. But what about ignition cut launch control for stage 1? It's only available for dual pulley currently, right?
It'll be the ignition cut stuff is test pipe only, and that will be rolling out. That we've talked about that earlier already. So yeah, it'll be coming as long as you've got a test pipe.
However long. Yeah.
We don't recommend running that on stock Cat vehicles.
Yeah, I mean it will. The Cat will absorb all that extra.
Yes,
unburnt fuel
energy coming down the pipe.
Right.
Yep.
Advice for young automotive engineers who have just started their studies. Absolutely. So I think for a company like 034 Motorsport, we're looking for not only people who can engineer, but people who have tuning experience with the tuning and kind of an aftermarket performance mindset. That's a lot harder to find.
Yeah.
And so we could take a performance enthusiast who's capable of being an engineer. That's typically what we would work with. It's harder for us to take an engineer with traditional engineering training and try to give them a performance mindset.
Yeah.
We see this a lot with technicians too.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, unless you've really got a business to the size of something much larger than we are, where you can just slot that engineer into a strictly engineering task that's very managed and regulated, but that's almost basically non-existent in the aftermarket. Yeah.
I mean, you could do that at SpaceX or NASA.
Yeah, exactly. Where you're much you're a part of a much bigger single effort.
Yeah.
This,
but here we need an engineer to kind of take and own a product from concept all the way to the testing and execution.
Yeah, yeah, and there's a number of disciplines that are a part of it too.
So I would say volunteer as a crew on race teams. Mm-hmm. Go race in lemons. Buy a project car, mod it, tune it, make stuff for it. SAE is good. We've had a lot of staff involved in the Formula SAE program in colleges. Learn how to weld, learn how to 3D print, learn how to do CAD, which hopefully you learn in the engineering. But the key is applying those skills to the products we need. We need a whole brake rotor engineered and it's floating and there's pins that the rotor floats on, and we need someone who can do the engineering side, but also realize how does that fit, how does that apply, what does the market want, how do we make it reliable and last a long time and meet all the performance needs as well. What I did is all the things that I told you. I started a project car, which was ADTQ, which ultimately kind of launched this company. I did a lot of racing. I got involved in driving events with the Audi Club. We built race cars. We raced them. We broke them. We fixed them.
Yep.
Every chance I got, I was doing something related to performance tuning. I started standalone tuning. I started engineering products. I learned how to weld.
So very similar path for me as well. It was, where I was, there wasn't a lot of tracks around, so it was a lot of autocrossing, but it was still lots of crazy builds, motor swaps. Yeah. Diving in a little deeper than I probably should have on all of them, but then
you learn
knuckling down and learning how to get it all working. I needed.
And do a lot of reading. Read
a lot of
everything,
research and
everything you can learn about physics, about materials.
Don't be afraid to try stuff. There's a lot of stuff that's not going to work. You'll find out much faster paths and more things will start working for you more than not as you progress.
So. Yeah, learn about engineering, like manufacturing. Learn about different manufacturing techniques, about how different materials are used, the different kinds of casting and machining processes, injection molding. The more you know about that stuff, if you come to a company like ours with racing and motorsport experience, with deep, intimate knowledge of materials and manufacturing techniques, and you own a project car and you're an enthusiast and you've done all the things to your car that our customers would want, we're going to be falling over ourselves to bring on someone like that. So, and it's fun to do, right? That's the beauty of this whole thing. Like, you get to go to the track and learn about racing. I mean, and then you can get paid to do that eventually. So, I mean, that's pretty freaking awesome, and that's ultimately, what brought us all to this point as well.
Yep.
Okay, good question. Thank you. Someone's asking, why don't you have a tune for the Audi S7? This is a 4.0 T.
Again, just as we spoke before, it's a bandwidth thing.
Well, we don't have 4.0 T.
We don't have 4.0 T, so that's just part of the packaging.
We will release 4.0 T tuning next year. In the next year, that's our goal. So we will have S7 tuning at that point. Will Nick and Steve be coming on board mean the B9 tuning will be ready this year?
It means it'll be
not this year,
a hell of a lot further along.
But yeah,
we'll see how things go and progress. We've got some, we are working on the B9 S4 tuning currently, and that's only going to progress. So, that's going to have a lot more effort put in.
Yeah, that's a huge initiative for us. We got to get to market with B9s.
I mean, and if you haven't noticed, we don't like giving ETAs on things that we don't have a solid release schedule for. So we'd rather under-promise and over-deliver.
Any plans to adapt the B9 S4 S5 intake to the B9 SQ5?
We already covered this. So.
Yes, we were actually talking about this last week
and earlier today.
Are we sure Nick's not just asking all these questions?
Yep.
I'm not Nick.
Oh, I'm sorry, B9 SQ5. My apologies. Yes.
Merc. Oh yeah, I know. It's getting very confusing.
That is a Mercadante question right there.
What are the benefits having a ZF tune with your tunes like Stage 2 Plus?
So as you go up and up with our power on our ECU tunes, we do not manipulate or underscale the torque values, which does become a problem if you're not on a properly tuned ZF file. We are over the normal torque limits, software torque limits on the ZF software, and it will start opening the bypass valve and causing power reductions. There is a requirement to have a tune that at least raises those torque limits and then faster and better shifts and different points. So, it's more of a requirement versus just some side benefits. It's needed to really get the potential of it.
To really push the tune to where it needs to. Absolutely. Okay, it's almost we're almost halfway through. I wanted to just take a minute to talk about. I've been taking, since you guys are watching, it's a good opportunity to talk about some various topics that are important and close to our hearts. And so I wanted to talk about the scientific method. Science is kind of like a real popular, common topic right now. Nick's like praying to the happy. And so, the science, I mean, I don't know if you heard of Galileo and guys like that getting their heads chopped off because they said the Earth was the center of the universe. Science can be a very controversial, dangerous topic. And of course, nowadays with the debates over climate change and the political debates about climate change and other scientific topics, like even around coronavirus, science gets brought up a lot. And, science, like anything good, gets misused. It becomes politicized. It becomes, people attempt to use science to support false information, and you name it, right? So just like anything good, it can get misused. But science in and of itself is a very good thing, and this is what I wanted to talk about. Arguably, we are all alive because of science. Our modern societies, the medical breakthroughs, and everything that we take for granted, the food we eat, the cars we drive, everything that we do with tuning,
it's so much
is
founded taken for granted
and proven in science. And so science is not a philosophy. Science is not a way to think. Science is not
political.
It's completely unrelated to politics. It's unrelated to opinions. It has nothing to do with bias or what any person thinks.
And to be clear, there are a number of people that claim science that do not practice that method.
Sure,
there, you'll see someone saying that there's a scientific study, yada yada, that can, there's enough out there that are based in falsehoods and do not follow this method. If this method is followed, it's going to be very tough to poke holes in.
Science is a process. It's a process that way information is thought about, evaluated, and proven. And so there are steps in the scientific process. The first is to observe and come up with the need for a potential answer. And after you observe, and so in our case, we may observe that the engine in an Audi moves around way too much. And when you try to apply power or torque to the drivetrain, instead of that power and torque being transferred to the wheels, the engine moves and compresses on the mounts and bounces around for a while. And so we would then ask a question, and we would say, what is the problem, and what is the hypothesis that we could potentially solve. We would then do some research and figure out, why is the engine moving? What controls the movement of the engine? How is power applied? When the engine moves, what are the parts that are supposed to be controlling this movement? And of course, it gets exaggerated with additional horsepower or G-forces and things like that. So then we create a hypothesis and we say, well, if we take these certain mounts and we change them, can we better control or reduce the amount of engine movement? We are just hypothesizing at this point. So you could kind of call that like a conspiracy theory. I think a legit hypothesis is a reasonable question with a very likely chance of being correct. And you could like kind of go to a conspiracy theory, which is just kind of a wild guess by connecting a few dots with no necessary proof or basis. But at that point, this is where the problem with conspiracy theories is. At that point, people draw a conclusion, say that conspiracy theory must be true because I think it is. And they skip all the rest of the steps of the scientific process. Yep. So once you've hypothesized, you can experiment. So what we would do typically is re-engineer the motor mounts. We would change the materials, we would change the construction, and then we would measure the difference or change in engine movement based on implementing that product. The key part of experimenting is having a control. And so this is where, when we're dealing with customers every day, they will contact us and say, your product failed, it's your fault, it's the product's fault. And that's sort of like, and that could be true in many cases, but in a lot of cases, this is an experiment that the customer has done without a control, where they're not normalizing the different variables. And so when you have a control, you're creating a situation where none of the variables have been changed, and it's the normal scenario. And then when you experiment, you isolate. So we would measure the stock engine with no changes to the mounts, and then we would take a stock mount and we would only change the material, and then we would take a stock mount and only change the construction or the the architecture of how it works. And then we can test these individual variables independently of the other, and we can always go back and compare it to the control to see what actually changed. What you want to avoid in an experiment is testing too many variables, changing too many things at once, and not having anything to go back to compare to. And that's where you end up drawing false conclusions. You test the hypothesis through the experimenting to see, does the original hypothesis, which was, can we reduce or control the engine movement, were we able to do that? Did the various experiments that we conducted prove that the changes we made did what we wanted it to? And then we would draw the conclusions. And at that point, we would lock in the design, put some prototypes in the car, and then we would test them.
Or we wouldn't. We'd jump back up into the,
That's right.
The process.
Yeah. So that there's this kind of loop where if you do the experiments and your hypothesis fails, then you have to go back up to the hypothesis and start the whole process over. And then ultimately, in our case, we don't report the results, but we would release the product to the market. So this is a way, again, and the process determines the outcome. If you go through the process, you will generate the correct outcome. And what happens in the greater science community is other scientists can then, when you report it, they have the opportunity to pick apart your whole experiment. They can take a look and say your experiment's flawed because your control, you didn't do the control correctly, or you mixed up too many variables, or you didn't have enough of the data sets, or you made a mistake in your calculations, your statistics are wrong, or whatever it is. And the science community can pick it apart. So the biggest problem that can happen in science is when if all the scientists assume that something's true, and they kind of have this self-propagating philosophy that makes it so these experiments and the data aren't looked at correctly, then the science falls apart. But eventually someone in science, another scientist, will prove that that's wrong, and the whole cycle,
it's just like, it comes back to looking at your data and your questions without a bias.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate goal.
Taking bias out of it is kind of, I think, the number one hallmark of the scientific method. And again, that's why I say science doesn't care about what you think, doesn't care about what you want to be true. So the scientific process, if followed, is the most reliable thing that we as humans have to get to a reliable piece of information where the truth or information from that is repeatable time and time again. So anyways, if you guys have any questions about that, feel free to chime in. And thanks for letting us talk about something that's important to us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, how do we actually measure the results of these experiments? I mean, that's very general. We do everything we can to get some measurement and some data around it when possible. Some of it's going to be, not necessarily lent to hard data. It's more of a tactile solution we're working on.
Part of it
some of it is number based, and it can be very data driven. So it really depends on the challenge we're working on.
We can measure, we can data log, we can take quantitative reviews of the product. Different staff can drive the car. Yep. A lot of what we're trying to accomplish with products is to change the driving experience.
Yep.
But with our intakes, we will measure pressure drop. We will measure the ultimate flow of the unit.
Yep.
We'll measure dyno horsepower changes. Of course, on the tuning side, there's a tremendous amount of scientific method testing different strategies.
Variable isolation is huge.
Yeah, isolating variables is so important.
An ECU's got upwards of 30,000 variables. We're playing with at any given time. It's critical to try and isolate it as much.
You're trying to solve a gear drop issue in a tune. You have to make sure you're isolating the right variables so that you actually solved it, and it's not actually something else that fixed it temporarily. But when that thing changes, then the gear drops out again. So, it's a critical part of engineering. All right. Well, thanks for listening. Next question: C7 S67 motor mounts. Yes. So we are in the middle of the scientific method.
We're going right through that
with that product. We did test our initial manufacturing samples, and we did have an issue with it. The product is not ready for release, and it's not good enough to be released. And so we are addressing that issue. There is a delay on that product because we won't release it with the issue that this prototype had. So we are having more made, and our testing process will continue. So apologize about the delays, but that's how the process works, like we just talked about. And the initial hypothesis didn't bear out, and so we're back to the hypothesis and experimenting phase to make sure that this is the best product it can be before it's released. Crackle tunes safe on stock cats. Why are crackles on the test pipe? Why are crackles on the test pipe files now?
So we moved. They're only on the test pipe or racing files at this point. Moving forward, it's just a matter of work effort, and the what you get out of the sound and whatnot is very, very muffled on the stock cats. And it's not necessarily a safety thing. It's just typically the crackle overruns guys are going to have going to be for the more race oriented setups. I mean, it's just, we're dealing with literally every single software that we release. Each box code has upwards of 100 to 150 files that we have to do for it. And as soon as we add, an option for, like, I want a non-test pipe, or a stock cat car with crackles, another 30 files for every single.
I mean, it's something we can do eventually.
We can do it. It's just we have to pick the most common combinations that we can to cover as much as we can.
So stay tuned. We'll continue to discuss and evaluate and prioritize that internally here. Would you make an IS-38 hybrid like the EQT for the GTI? An EQT.
The equilibrium tuning.
Oh, okay. They have a hybrid. I mean, that's basic. I mean, we have the R460, but not for the GTI.
Right.
So we are going to do an IS-38 GTI tune. We've done bigger turbo tunes on GTIs. It's a lot of wheel spin. So I don't know. I guess we can do whatever, but we'll have to discuss that. Our goal isn't to make real high horsepower turbo kits for front wheel drive cars at this point. But if a lot of people wanted it and like spinning their tires in fourth and fifth gear, I suppose is something we can consider. There's been talk of a B9 benefiting from a larger intercooler, even stock in some scenarios. Have you noticed the need for that on the B8s?
Earlier than on the B8s.
Earlier than on the B8s.
I mean, they both benefit from increased cooling capacity. I'm not sure there's really all that big of a difference from one to the other.
I think that the stock B9S4 on stock tuning with the stock intercooler is pretty well intercooled compared to some of the cars out there. But once you start turning the boost up, the turbo is running in a less efficient area of its map, and it produces a lot more heat due to the inefficiency created by spinning it harder and faster.
And the B9A4, you can increase your intercooling by like 25% if you just take off a plastic
panel. The A4 is easy. But we do offer the B9 Wagner intercoolers, and they're substantially bigger, and they're a great upgrade. I think when you'll really see the benefit on like a stage 1 car is on track under sustained acceleration, accelerating over and over and over again. The stock intercooler, the heat can build up. So the quick blast down the street probably not going to make as much of a difference. But as that heat, the heat builds up and the intercooler heat soaks, then the ECU is going to start pulling timing and boost back to protect the motor from the higher intake temps. MQB brake upgrades. We're offering several. This is some new rotors that we're coming out with. This is a new line of products. This is the RS3 TTRS rotor. And this is an upgrade for the factory rotor. The main thing that you get, so we have our hand model here. The main thing you get is the directional cooling vanes that the factory rotors don't have. So in the factory, one rotor is spinning the right way, the other rotor is spinning backwards, and generally the cooling provisions in the stock rotors aren't very good anyways. So this is a substantial upgrade to the stock rotor, and their stock size. These are, as you can see, a very big rotor. So what we found is this type of rotor with a good pad upgrade is a good option on track. With like kind of a track pad option. So this currently only fits the RS3. We're not sure if we're going to do the TTRS version, but we do offer, I think, the Giro disc version. But initially, the market's there for the RS3. Sorry about that. So we are also offering the same upgrade for the front and rear of the RS3, and in the rear, it's actually a bigger rotor. And so we offer a new caliper carrier that moves the factory caliper out further. And then we're also offering this rotor upgrade for the S3 Golf R as well. And Nick, I suppose that could be used on GTIs and stuff too, with performance pack. And there's probably a ways to upgrade a normal GTI to performance pack as well. Yeah, so as long as you have the right calipers, and then depending on how popular these are, we will come out with more options. We're looking at the B9, I could even do R, stuff like that. So, these are particularly effective on track when you're really getting heated. We do also offer MQB stainless steel brake lines. Brakes are tough though. I mean, there's like Brembo, AP Racing, Alcon Racing Line has a good line of brake upgrades, which we'll be carrying those.
Yep.
And that's just to name a few. There's literally like 50 companies that make big brakes for these. So we're not trying to go too deep in that direction because Stop Tech, so many people do it well.
Mm-hmm.
And we support Brembo as well as a technical partner.
Yep.
How many iterations would your project typically go through before you feel comfortable releasing it?
That is very dependent on the product. I mean, software, depending on how in depth we're going, we're years in a continual development process, thousands of iterations. I mean, I've got thousands of miles on the dyno. It's substantial the amount of time.
I mean,
iterative.
I'd say usually at least one or two. Even on the simplest product, like a silicone hose or something.
The most simple, I mean, at least a couple of revisions. We don't almost ever nail it the way we want it to be right off the start. So.
So, I guess the right answer is the right number of iterations to create a reliable product that meets the needs of the customer. And it will be as many or as few as required to do that. I think if there were too many iterations, outside any kind of window of normality, we would probably determine that it's not a good product to do. And there's been a lot of products that we've gotten into a certain number of iterations. And we're just like,
there's too many compromises. It's not feasible to release for any
the hypothesis isn't proving out. The experiments are showing us that we were wrong in our hypothesis. And one good example of that was the RS7 intake. The C7 4.0T intake. We worked on that for a year. We came out with 3 or 4 iterations. And ultimately, we determined that we weren't really able to improve over the stock airbox because it was really good.
The RS version of it.
The RS7 version of it. The RS7 airbox is just the S6 airbox with a hole cut in it.
Yep.
And that was as good as having no airbox. And so we kind of shelved that because we could bring a lot more value to other products and focus our efforts on those. Is the MQB 2.0 TSI important to you guys development-wise?
Very much so. We actually just picked up another one last week. MQB 2.2 liter is definitely
we've had one of those cars in our product development stable since 2016, 2015. It's a huge part of our business. I think about 40% of our business is MQB 2.0 TSI business. So it's foundational to the 034 Motorsport business.
Absolutely. We do talk 3 liter on here a lot. That's kind of, we're very deep in that as well. But 2 liter stuff, MQB stuff is all, very active and worked on every day.
And we're so well known for Audis and S and RS stuff, but almost half of our business is MQB, VW Audi. So it's a huge part. Will you ever CARB certify any of your applicable products? Yes, we are doing that. So we are getting CARB certifications. We're very far along in the process for 3.0T ECU stage 1 calibrations and intakes, as well as MQB 2.0 stage 1 calibrations and intakes. We hope to have some good news to release about that in the next few months, but we've been engaged in the testing and certification process.
We're pretty far along with everything now. They've been tested. They've been through the lab.
And we are going to get certifications. Our tunes are going to pass. And so we're just buttoning up the details.
Here's an email about it right now.
Right. No, it's been a big project for Nate, and great job, Nate. Nate's done some amazing work getting us to this point with from an engineering tuning standpoint. It's been really great. The other cool thing is we got to have our dyno compared to an automotive manufacturer grade dyno, and our dyno reads just about identical.
Yeah, we were spot on.
To
power,
the
power
carb.
wise.
At Carb, they have a OEM manufacturer calibrated dyno, and our numbers match those. Which I think to me was as cool as the carb certification.
It was pretty satisfying
because it's very important to us that our dyno numbers that we advertise are accurate, and there is so much fudging around with dyno numbers.
And that's actually one of the key things. I was surprised when we got into this process. Carb, the Air Resources Board, when they're testing these products, they need to know that your advertised numbers and what they're testing line up with the product that you're getting certified. Yeah. So if you claim X amount of horsepower increase and a certain amount of change, you need to be able to show that on their dyno, or it's not. They're going to assume it's a different product, and it's not. You're testing something else just for that. So no, there's a number of qualifications that come along, and ours lined up perfectly.
It also helps that we're at sea level. We don't have to apply any dubious.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of guesswork on that, or you're relying on whatever the dyno manufacturers.
This is a big problem for the tuners that are at elevation.
Yeah,
they apply these SAE corrections, and they're just bogus. Once you get at elevation, they're totally inflated. So for us, we always reference our numbers back to the factory advertised numbers. And so we test a bone stock car. We can create a baseline that ends up being our control for the experiment for all the other tunes, and we can create a normalized data set around what the stock car is reading compared to the stock advertised number.
Yep.
So if a factory Audi is rated at 250 horsepower and it makes 215 at the wheels, we now have something that we can use to begin to calibrate our dyno. In addition to our accurately calibrated dyno.
The hardware itself is,
the hardware as well. So.
And that was, I mean, everybody says you can fudge dynos, you can do this and that. We haven't touched our calibration from what Mustang set it up as. We had an engineer come out, get us dialed in.
That was the key. We had Mustang come here and calibrate our dyno here, and that's proven to be very accurate.
Yeah, and it hasn't been touched since.
If your Mustang that's never been done to it, then chances are the numbers are off, and then there's people going in there playing with corrections.
Yep, and we do have
SAE corrections. They can be all over.
Yeah, and we run both. We do run a full weather station inside the dyno cell to know what humidity and pressure and temperature are, and we can look at both before and after numbers. And we're like Javad said, we're lucky. We're at sea level, so we're within a percent.
The need to change or to correct is so small.
Yeah, our correction factors, if we use the weather data, is usually like 0.0 something.
And our humidity and the dew points.
That's what I'm saying. We're really lucky. We're basically an SAE standard environment here a lot of the time.
So usually the correction factor is 0 or close to
really close to it.
Yeah. Let's see. How do I get a career at 034? Is someone with an engineering degree worth more to a company versus someone who has all the qualifications but no actual degree? Well, first of all, if you'd like to get a career here, go to our homepage, scroll down to the bottom, and click on careers. We actually have a page for
We have a whole page for that.
And there you can see the job listings that are posted that we're currently hiring for. And then there's also a way to just contact us if you don't see something that
if you really think you can knock our socks off and offer really great experience or capabilities to us, don't hesitate. We're always ears open, and we'll keep you in mind if we don't have something right away. But
I think I said this a couple sessions ago, but we're always looking for good people. If we will always, if you're capable, if you have good values, if you're a hard worker, if you're excited about what you do, if you take pride in what you do, we're always going to be able to find a spot for someone like that. Just about always. And we've created positions for people like that.
We have. And it's, if you're the right fit, if you're the right people, we much rather hire the person than paperwork.
Yeah.
It's a good fit for everybody.
Typically, yes, an engineering degree would make you worth more. College degrees and stuff like that do bring higher pay. But we're a small company, and for us, it's where the rubber meets the road, literally.
Yeah.
Or where the mount meets the engine. We are going to look at who can do the job the best, who can hit the ground running, who's going to help us achieve our goals in that role more effectively. Just a college degree by itself doesn't really mean anything to us. We're looking for what happens, how do things get done, what is the quality of the work, and a college degree in the midst of that certainly helps. I think a big thing that we struggle with, I think employers in general struggle with, is writing aptitude. Very few people these days can write a complete sentence without basic grammar, syntax errors, and not to mention misspellings, which are less of an issue. But just being able to communicate thoughts in writing, it's such a valuable skill.
It really is. Just getting a point across, asking a concise question without turning it into a book.
Which ironic these days, right? Because like almost all communication has gone to writing in the last 10 years. But all these kind of shortcuts and the weird internet jargon people use and the abbreviations, those just don't help you. Honestly, if you do those, GTFO, we don't want you here. No, I'm kidding. But it's not going to help you be successful here or
place for all of it, right? You still need to be able to communicate in a very thoughtful way.
Yes, I think the two most important college classes, if you go to college, is English writing and statistics class. And we don't really care if you know about history or art or even calculus for that matter. But knowing how to write, knowing how to communicate is probably the number one skill. And statistics gives you a numerical understanding of the world and the work around you. So if you have even basic understanding of statistics, you can make better decisions, and you can evaluate data and information for significance much more effectively.
We already
at the careers page.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. Go to career. Go to our website. Go to the bottom. And is it just /careers?
Let me check.
Yeah.
I think it is.
So, but it's at the bottom where all our general links are at the bottom of the homepage. You could also Google careers at 034 and it will come up. So it's another skill, Googling.
Google
the better you are at Googling.
I'm sure it's probably a class at this point, but
the more hireable you are.
Having some solid Google foo under your belt will go a long way these days.
Honestly, 034 Motorsport is a company that exists because we here are good at Google. Not to give all our secrets away, but we can solve just about any problem here by using Google. So.
And that comes back to just knowing how to ask the right questions too.
Yes.
How to formulate the question in a way that's going to get you the answers as quickly as possible. A lot of that goes into being very good at Google or very good at just finding the information you need, whether it's from a person or from a computer.
I would put Google in the quiver of resourcefulness. How resourceful are you at solving problems? Are you able to see a problem and find ways to solve it on your own without a lot of help? If you can do that well, you will be very valuable at any company you work at, including 034 Motor. Not to say that we want people to work on their own, but if somebody's coming to a team to collaborate on an idea or a solution, it helps if they can come with some ideas that they've researched already. So.
On that note,
I think we're out of time. There's a lot of great questions that we will work on getting to, in future episodes.
Yep.
So we really like doing these. We're not planning on stopping doing them anytime soon. I think they've been a great way for us to connect with you guys, to connect with the market. I think you guys are getting a better idea of who we are and what we do and how we think with every episode. So it's an honor for us to be able to communicate that to you guys and get this create this dynamic with everyone. So thank you again for listening, and we will see you guys next week. Cheers.
Sure.